Okay, like he said, my name's Bryce Easley. I'm a senior developer at Tango Analytics. We do franchise and retail analytics. A couple companies you might know that we work with is Chick-fil-A. Everybody loves Chick-fil-A, and actually Hobby Lobby. So I know there's some Hobby Lobby people here, so that's great. The title of this presentation is Spice Up Your Java with Project Lombok. Can you guys see that okay? Okay. If you want to download the code samples for this stuff, it's on GitHub. I have the link here. I don't know if you guys have show notes after or something like that. We'll just post them there too. So like Andres said, and thank you for inviting me to talk, Andres, I appreciate that. I have worked on very complex systems. American Airlines, Southwest Airlines, PCI obviously had complex system, and now Tango Analytics. And a lot of times in complex systems, you'll see complex code, right? And when you're doing code reviews, stuff like that, you'll get a lot of WTFs. So that's why I think this is, everybody can relate to this, right? The code quality measurement, WTFs a minute. It's one of my favorite comics, I love that. But really what it comes down to, these WTFs, is clean code, right? And do you want clean code? That's almost rhetorical, right? Yes, of course you want clean code. And with Java in particular, what's the big problem? Boilerplate, right? Lots of getters, lots of setters, lots of unnecessary stuff that adds no business value. And that really comes down to readability as well. So if you're doing a code review, you want to know what exactly you're looking at and not just a junk code that brings no business value. Closer. Oh, sorry. Hello. Mic check. So as discussed, the title of this was Project Lombok. So how does Lombok actually help with this? Okay, Lombok is an annotation-based library. So instead of writing lines and lines of code, it really shortens it up. It shortens it up and injects it into your class files after the fact. So your your Java files themselves, they're clean, right? So when you do code reviews, you don't notice it. It's until after the fact that it gets injected. So that allows for clean and readable code, which is exactly what we're going for here. So getting started with Lombok is really easy, right? But I do have to warn you, it is broken into stable and experimental. And this talk is really only going to focus on the stable stuff. The experimental stuff, I don't necessarily recommend using it because some of it can be unstable. So getting started, you add this into your POM file, right? This is the thing that injects the code. And then also you need it in your IDE. So when you do your getters, setters, you don't have to recompile every time. And that's a simple plugin. And I'm sorry, NetBeans users, no support. So if you use NetBeans, you're out of luck. But Eclipse and IntelliJ, they all have plugins, so you'll be good to go for them. Okay, so we're just going to walk through some of this stuff and show how it can really help you. So we'll get started, and hopefully you guys can see my code here. Can you guys see that okay? Everybody see that okay? Okay, great. So we're going to refactor this using Lombok, okay? So you can see this is a pretty standard class. Lots of features, let's say. No args constructor, all args constructor, your getters, your setters, your equals, your hash code, your toString. Standard, right? And that's 105 lines, no business value, right? That's a bummer. That's a real bummer. And if you're reviewing this, you're like, why? Why do I have to look at all of this? Okay, so we'll go back to my slide here, and we'll start with getter setter. I know you guys, you're like this right now, right? You're Picard, you're so excited. Okay, so let me open up. I've already done this for you, so you don't have to watch me type everything. Whoops, that's not the right one. Don't look. So this is a class with just the getter and setter annotations. So if I can open up my import, which I don't think I can, you'll see that I just imported these two Lomboks, getters and setters. And look at this. See, we're already down half, almost. And here's something you might not have noticed before. I actually had some custom logic in here. And now that's so much more easy to identify because you probably shouldn't do this in real life, uppercase in your getter, but if somebody were to do this, it's easier to identify in a code review, right? That's why we do this. It's cleaner. Okay, on to the next annotation that we can add here. No args and all args. That's pretty self-explanatory, but let's open it up and look at it. All right, is it looking cleaner, guys? What do you think? Yeah, absolutely. There's another one that Lombok actually offers. It's called a required args constructor. So if you didn't want an all args and you only wanted some to be initialized in the constructor, you can just add a final in some of these variables, and it will add those to the required args constructor. Does that make sense? Okay. Can you guys see? Okay, all right, just double checking. All right, still excited, aren't we, guys? All right, next one, equals and hash code. Once again, just adding this annotation here, equals and hash code. And look at our class now. It's already so minimal. This is crazy, guys. I hope we're getting pumped here because this is awesome. This really is, right? And I know you're kind of mad at me, so this is probably how you're feeling now because I'm going one at a time. But here's the two string, obviously. It's the last one I had left. Face palm here. But we'll get closer to the end result. And look at that. That's clean. Huh? That is clean. And that's what we want, guys. In a code review, this is really all you should see. This has no business logic, right? We know exactly what this is for. It's a DTO probably, right? Just holds data. That's all we need it to do. And now you're going to be really mad at me because I didn't actually have to do all that because there's the data class. You'll notice that's really not data. That's Mark Zuckerberg. I just think that's so funny. So let's take a look at that. One annotation does all that for us. One annotation, right? And I don't know if I still have this up, so let me try. But you can actually see if I were to work with this stuff in my IDE, and I were to do, let's say, that F normal class. Sorry. That it actually has, sorry for the confusing naming. Let me just change that so we get less confused. How about that? We still have everything that we want, right? We have that, sorry. I don't know why that's not working. What's up? Oh, you're right. Sorry, I'm used to the black text, but this was easier to read, so this is not going to work. Let's just call this ABC. All right, see? We have all of our getters, we have our hash code, we have all of our setters, and this is from the IDE. I haven't compiled anything, guys. I haven't compiled anything. So this is already easy to use, ready to go. And one thing I want to show you is Lombok has this feature in their Maven plugin called dLombok. All right, so really all you have to do is run the generate sources if you're a Maven user here. And what we can see is in this generated sources, if I were to go to this DTO and I were to go to normal class, we can see the compiled code. It's everything that we had before. A little bit more, right? But that saved us 130 lines. That's big time. That's big time. When we're talking about code cleanliness, that's what we're talking about. Unnecessary code. We don't need it. We don't. Let me see if I can get rid of that. Okay, so on to our next one here. We have the value type. What value do you add? And this is a pretty standard class. So instead of having all your setters and getters, this is only getters. This is an immutable class. It's helpful for DTOs where you don't want stuff to change. I actually use this one probably more than I do the data annotation, just because I don't like my data to change. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so I'm actually gonna maybe trick you guys, so just pay attention. Here is the class that we're gonna try to replace here. Okay, a immutable class. Okay, you guys get it? It has one map, one string. Pretty standard. And that's all I did there. Now, let me ask you guys, do you think this is gonna work for everything I want if I don't want this stuff to change ever? I'll go ahead and answer your question. No, it's not going to work, right? The problem is the map, right? So if I put onto that map, it's gonna modify the map. And that's one of the drawbacks of using value without knowing what you're doing, right? You can still mutate stuff. So that's why I kind of recommend using, Google has the Guava library, and that introduced an immutable map. I would recommend that. So if we look at C immutable class, you'll see I have this immutable map, which comes from Guava, but it's google.common. And that gets us what we want. We cannot mutate that map. So just be aware of that. There are some tricky spots when it comes to Lombok because it can't read your mind, right?
Does that value annotation imply an all-R constructor?
It does, yes. Oh, yes, sorry.
The question was if the value annotation implied an all-R constructor.
Yeah, sorry. The question was, does the value annotation imply the all-R constructor? And yes, it does. Yes, that's a great question, yeah.
If you have an array, does it create that index, or does it just get the whole array?
It would, I think, get the whole array, yeah. And then you could get it after that, but that would, I think that, yeah, so I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me.
You can add anything Lombok is.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so that is the value annotation. I think that is one of the most useful annotations. I really, really do. Valvar, okay. Valvar is an interesting one. I made this meme because this is how I feel when I see Valvar. I don't even want to look at it. If you guys watch Bird Box, this is a meme coming from that Netflix show. But let me show you why I don't believe in Valvar. I think it's okay, just to clarify, I think it's okay in some scenarios, okay? Some very basic scenarios, but let me just show you this one, okay? Trying to hide this, sorry. Okay, go away. Okay, so this is a simple service, right? And then, so what var and val do is they take away the type annotation for Java. If var is the mutable one, val is the immutable one. Okay, the problem is if you were looking at this in a code review, what's service result 3? You have no freaking idea, right? That does not make your code cleaner. That does not improve code quality. Because if I'm a new guy and I'm coming in and I'm using this stuff, I don't know what you're doing. I'm going to go look at the class, which is okay, but at the same time, it would be a lot easier if I had a type annotation and just see it right away, especially in a code review, right? Code review, it's really difficult because you have to open up, let's say this is a new service, I would pull your branch down, I would have to look at that service. It's kind of annoying. It really is. Now, I think we were talking, I think var and val might be coming to Java as a standard, and that's okay because we can add type annotations, right? We know what type it is. So Scala, Kotlin, you can already do that. They have var and val, but you can add the type annotation. That's the big differentiator here, right? Type annotations, because you can easily see from the code review what's going on. Do we have any questions so far?
I have a silly question.
Sure.
You talked about how you can mark things final for the required constructor, right?
Mm-hmm.
What about the hash code equals?
Mark it as final.
I mean, how do you, so whenever you added that annotation and you added the hash code equals
Mm-hmm.
annotation was that hash code equals for everything in there or just for the ID? I mean, how do you know what fields are going to?
So if you were to use the required args and the equals in hash code, is that your question? It would still use everything in there. The problem with that is an equals in hash code, you could have some null pointers coming in there. So if that's what you're trying to drive at. So if you're trying to do an equals and something was null in there, they do have an annotation that's called not null. So if you were trying to initialize that and you put it in a null and that required args, right, it would throw an error. I don't actually go over that annotation, but you can either use it inside of the constructor, right? So in each variable, you can put a not null annotation before the constructor, or you can put it as the class variable. So you can annotate that class level variable and put it right there. And it'll do the exact same thing. And really it's just a null check. And it throws an error if there's a null in there.
Okay. Are the generated equals and hash code method not null safe?
I don't think they are. We can take a look. I could be completely wrong. So there's easy way to check. We'll look at Lombok, right? It is checking for null, so it is null safe.
I guess I don't think I clarified my question very well. So this is using every single field in this class.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is.
So what if I only want my equals to use the ID field, or if I only want to use something?
Sure. Yeah. So by default, it does exactly it does everything. But I think, and I could be wrong, I think there's configurations where you can specify what you want. And if that doesn't even work for you, then you can actually override it. And then it'll pick up your equals and hash code that you want to use.
Okay.
So similar to how I did that getter, remember I did the 2 uppercase on the getter? It would use that getter instead of its own generated getter. It would check for that first. Yeah, no problem. Okay, so valvar, use with caution is all I'm saying. Use with caution, because you could really mess up your code really fast with this stuff. And it was really controversial when it was introduced to the Lombok project, just FYI. I was against it, obviously. Builder class, who's familiar with the builder pattern? Everybody, yep. Hands all around, Twitch, hands all around. So we'll look at this bank account, right? This is all we did. We annotated it with Builder. Wow, Bryce, that's amazing. And what it gives you is the Builder pattern, right? It gives you an instance of Builder, and you can use whatever you want right in there. And then I did a 2-string here because the Builder itself comes with a 2-string, which is great. Unfortunately, you would still have to add the 2-string to the bank account, right? Because that doesn't generate a 2-string. Only the Builder does. And you can see that you can actually change this build to whatever you want. It's one of the overrides. So I strongly encourage you, if you haven't looked at their webpage, go to their webpage. They have great documentation. They show you all the configurations that you can use. So I'd recommend looking at that, because build is the default, but you can do it like construct bank account. I don't know what you would do. But that is... What do you mean? I think you could, I don't think it does. I think what you would have to do is use your old bank account and use the getters from that, if that makes sense. Yeah. And maybe you could add your own, but I don't think it comes with that. And there might be a configuration, honestly. There might be. But let's take a look at that builder right here. So it comes with the constructor, obviously. And you see it has a bank account builder, right? Very standard builder pattern. It returns an instance of itself everywhere. And like I said, here's that 2-string that I was talking about for the builder, bank account builder. And the build obviously just runs the constructor. I mean, that's boilerplate stuff. I don't know how many builder patterns I wrote before I found Lombok that I'm just like, did I really waste all my time doing that? So this is great. This one always gets me. Sneaky throws. All right, so I'm sure a lot of us have dealt with, actually let's look at the sneaky service, right? So I guess a good example of this would be like a run on a thread, right? You can't add any exceptions to that. So it's always got to be a sneaky throws for a runtime exception. And I struggled with this one for a long time because, I was so used to doing something like this where it was sneaky throw itself, not so sneakily, I guess. And the more I thought about it, I think it does make more sense to go with this way, right? So the sneaky throws annotation for a malformed URL exception. And the reason I think that is because you don't have to add something. Let's say I had another runtime exception, some other exception, you can just add it to an array into the sneaky throws instead of adding it to the try-catch block or putting something inside of a try-catch block again. You know what I mean? So you would just have the annotation at the method level, and it becomes a lot easier to use. So we'll run this guy real quick. So let's go with the not sneaky. Not so sneaky. Okay. We'll run this guy. So this is not using Lombok at this point. Oh, I messed myself up over here. So we'll just run this real quick. And the thing I like also is it actually cleans up the exception a little bit. Okay, you see this? Pay attention to that caused by. Okay, so this is what it would look like if you didn't use sneaky throws. Okay, so let's do the sneak and take a look at this exception again. See? No cause by. I think it's just a lot cleaner exception in general. It could just be personal preference, guys. I don't know.
Does that allow that malformed URL exception to kind of bubble up, or does it immediately kill the process?
I think it allows it to bubble up, right? It hits that. Well, let's take a look at the
It looks
code.
like it's injecting some sort of a handler that then unrolls it and then just reports the throw, the cause.
That's exactly what it does, right? So it looks for this malformed URL, and then it does its own sneaky throw. So instead of throwing a runtime exception down here, it would throw its own version of it there. See how it wrapped it in that try-catch? That's exactly what I'm talking about. Just makes it so much cleaner.
So if you have a method that's calling sneaky
Mhm.
and catching malformed URL exception, is your catch block going to handle that, or is it going to bubble up to whatever? That's probably a top level exception. I'm just kind of wondering, does it wrap it in such a way that if it's nested several layers down, that your own applications?
Yeah, I think it would, right? So if I was running this and I was trying catching around that, I could catch that malformed URL exception instead of the runtime exception at that point. Okay, so that's the sneaky throws. Once again, just cleaning up our code, right? It avoids this and makes it a little cleaner when it actually runs, too. So that was pretty much it, but I will show you this guy, the cleanup. Okay, so this is, I know a lot of us have tried the try with resources, closing everything at the end. That's essentially what this is doing. It's a try with resources, but kind of cleaned up. So if we look at it, it's not necessarily a try with resources. Really what it does is it closes in the finally. So let's take a look at that de-Lomboked as well. Clean up here. So you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. See? It closes all these. So we don't have to worry about it. That is a lot of cleanup to me.
Does the IDE, a question, does usually Eclipse will complain that you have something that is closable or auto-closable and you're not actually closing it, but you're running it in a try with resources?
Yeah.
Does it understand?
I'm sure it would. If the plugin is made correctly, then I would think that it would. If not, then you're just going to have to turn that off, which, I don't know, right? Probably don't want to leave those resources open. Okay, I mean, that's honestly, that's all we have, and that is every single feature for Project Lombok, right? We went through them all, and you can see how much that cleans up your code, makes it so much more readable, so much more usable, so much more user-friendly, right? If I'm joining your company and I see this, I know exactly what's going on. I don't have to dig around. And that's the main point of Project Lombok. It's not a huge library, right? It's not like mind-blowing, but it does the simple stuff and it does it right. And I think a lot of times we forget about that stuff.
Does handle calling super on inherited classes?
I don't know. I can't remember off the top of my head.
It would almost have to, with JV, it won't let you compile.
Yeah,
You think so?
I would think so. But you're talking like the all args and no args constructors in particular, yeah. I'm not sure.
I just checked on the previous question about the hash code, and there's configuration that you can tell it include, they have a hash code include, and same for
Okay.
include, exclude, and they have a configuration for call super or not call super.
So there you go. Perfect.
Can we look at the D-Lombok with the var and val? I'm just kind of curious how.
Yeah, sure. So it does, it picks it up at compile time. So the var one, it would actually, so let's say I were to initialize a var string, it would actually say that that's a string and it would know that from that point on. It's just saying that you can change it. So it add, the val would just add the final onto that, but let me open that just so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So these actually return strings. And this would say this is a string, right? And the val version of that would just append or prepend final. Yeah.
Are those generated classes the same blue qualified
Are they what?
Are they the same blue qualified name as the source class?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, the D-Lombok is really helpful if you want to understand what's going on.
Are those Lombok, that's a standard feature, that's the way it,
Yeah, it comes with the Maven plugin. I'm not sure about SPT or Gradle or anything like that, but the,
if you're debugging through this, like it'll be available in sources jar?
ooh, that's a good question. So debugging it is a little bit of a different story, right? Because it is in your class files and not your actual Java sources. If you wanted to debug it more cleanly, you would have to use these generated files.
The D-Lombok isn't part of like standard Java application processing.
D-Lombok is not, right? It undoes the Lombok process.
Like, its hook into Java C is actually to generate, it just generates bytecode, it doesn't generate.
Yes, yep, that's correct, right. You nailed it. Yeah, D-Lombok's after that fact, right? So it compiles it and then decompiles it and shows what exactly went on.
Okay, so it's not a pre-process, but you actually compile it, and then the resulting sources we see are decompiled from.
Those compiled sources.
Okay. So the extension for is still a Java file, and it's still, you still use your same directory structure and everything else that you're used to using?
No, actually, that's a great question. So in this one, if you want to run D-Lombok, what they recommend is putting it into a source main Lombok and not Java, right? So that's why I did that for this example, because that's what it looks for. You can specify that, I think, through the plugin where you want it to look for that, but I just did it through source main Lombok, so then it actually D-Lomboks that particular folder structure.
I would ask that question, how you can configure the plugin to tell it which sources to process if you don't want to do all of them.
Yeah, I think that's just a configuration on the actual plugin itself.
It is an option,
I think it is, yes.
because we have a very large.
Sure. Yeah, and that's another thing, right? It is going to speed it or slow down your build times, obviously, right? It has to inject. Depends on how big the project is, right? So if you're talking small files, you're not going to notice it, but it could potentially make it 20% slower. Yeah. All right. That's all I have, guys. If you guys don't have any more questions, I really appreciate you inviting me out here to talk to you guys.